Good evening and a very warm welcome to The Black Hole. Today we are here for a panel discussion on The Other Days, which is a novel by Arshad Waheed. My name is Rashid Salim, and I will be moderating today's session. And with me today to discuss Other Days, we have, from my right, we have Pakas Masood, and he did his PhD in physics. To be precise, I think it was space plasmas, space plasmas in physics. And currently he is head of physics department at ComSat University. And he has varied interests, but he is a connoisseur of poetry. He is an avid reader of literature. And today, thank you very much for joining us. He will be presenting his views on the novel. We have with us Madam Shazia Chima, and she did her MA from, I don't know how to pronounce it, Aarhus University, Denmark, and currently she is registered as a PhD scholar from Charles University, Prague. And she is the author of this book, An Introduction to European Theatre, History of Performing Arts from Greek Period to 20th Century. And in particular, she, as her research thesis, she worked on Punjabi theatre. Because she studied cognitive semiotics, something which I also find interesting as a linguist. So she will probably be talking about the cognitive semiotic aspects of Other Days. And I think you all know the author of this novel, Arshad Waheed. Although he is a social policy consultant, but he is a renowned author. His first novel, Guman, in Urdu, came in 1995. And then he translated many literary giants, such as Marquez. His novel, Love in the Time of Cholera, he translated it. And then he also translated my favorite, Milan Kundera, his novel, Immortality. The Art of Novel was also translated and published by the Academy of Letters, I think. Yeah. That is a brief introduction. My name is Rashid Salim, and I think some of you know me as maybe someone who talks about philosophy and science topics, but essentially I'm English language teacher. Not just language and literature teacher. So, and I teach some courses such as Pakistani novelists or Pakistani writers in English. So this is quite relevant to me. One thing that I found fascinating about this book before we begin is that maybe we should, I think, start with the introduction of this novel. I don't know how many of you have already read this novel. If you haven't, we can just briefly, I can talk about it, and I think the story will unfold when we will talk to the panelists. Basically, it's the story of an immigrant in UK. Her name is Sara, and she meets, by chance, she meets Daud, who is also an immigrant in UK. And she recalls something that happened 28 years earlier on. This meeting, chance meeting, takes place on the eve of 2000, year 2000. It was New Year night. And she could recall the events that led to their being in UK. And these are, we will, I think, continue with the story, but I would like to I think this is enough as a lead. It's just the how the story begins, and then they explore their own lives, and they try to find their own identity and come back to Pakistan. But basically, as a backdrop, I think we can all keep in mind 1970s, early 1970s. So Sara actually she thinks about poetry sessions, about the festival of lights, Mela Charagan jisko hum kehte hain, and the political upheaval of 1970s, the political struggle. In early 1970, एक dictator का regime ख़त्म हुआ था, and then there started another regime. So that was the time when in the world, I think a lot of ideology, especially the left ideology, it was quite common in those days. So that's the backdrop, but within that backdrop, Arshad Waheed really explores the human condition, and we will explore certain themes that are in it. So I will begin by asking Waqas Masood to, in the beginning, I think it will be open, so I'm not going to ask any specific question. Rather, one question is, what's your take on the novel as a reader?
So first of all, I think Arshad Waheed, he should be congratulated for writing a novel which is very woman-centric. And the characters, the main leads are women, and they are very strong characters, and they are trying to live life on their own terms and not really succumbing to the pressure that is coming from the society. So that is one thing that is, it's like a breath of fresh air, because these women are not very timid, and they are ready to take their life on and want to lead life on their own terms. And then the other things that, well, as a reader, every reader finds certain aspects which are more close to their heart. So the themes that I have chosen are the ones that resonate with my inner self. So one of them is that I found that there are certain places where there are reflections into the human nature, and then the comments on the society, and most importantly, some beautiful expressions that reflect the astute observation of the author himself, because whenever you write something and you come up with some certain expressions, it reflects your observation, your take on things, and how you have managed to perceive the things around you and the life around you. And then another thing, which is again for this society, it's maybe not for the West, but in our society it is more relevant, how we view the male-female relationship. What is our perception when we find a male and a female sitting together, talking to each other? So, and what kind of, reactions that they can generate. And then most importantly, sometimes we believe that if somebody is talking about the progressive ideals or some kind of emancipation of women and stuff like that, we forget that the way, we are brought up, it makes us very complex. And sometimes we think that we have unlearned over the years the things that were taught to us in the early years. But when comes the crucial point, sometimes we behave as ordinarily as the other human beings. So this is something that he has beautifully put in the context of a certain relationship of a man with a woman. Then there's another thing which is again wonderful, is complexities of the parent-children relationship. So the main character is Sara. So I would say that in both ways, Sara is a child and then Sara is a parent. And all the complexities that this relationship entails, it has been beautifully captured and explained. So there are actually, I've written down all those pages and paragraphs where he explains things and explains not only explains things beautifully, but also, he also understands the spectrum, because there are many areas which can be talked about, and he has, I think, done justice to it. And one thing that surprised me was, of course, he has been abroad, he's gone abroad, he has lived there, but still, not everybody has that kind of understanding of things. In my view, he has brilliantly explained the predicament faced by the diaspora community. So there are things that, again, they resonate with me, because I also, spent my time while I was away for PhD in London. So I could see that there are strange kind of people that you meet, because there are many people who go from here in search of many things, some to get education, some to, make money, but when they go there, they see a different world, which is not always in conformity with all the cultural values that they have. And they find it extremely hard to integrate themselves with that society. So there is this conflict, and people want to preserve their identity. They actually suffer from the identity crisis. So that also has been, talked about. So this is wonderful. And in terms of the main character, Sara, I think he has also highlighted the perennial conflict between the individual and the society. So individual wants to assert, they want to break the taboos, they want to break the norms, they want to make a statement that they are free from the cultural bonds and stuff like that. But it's not as simple as that. So there is this, as they say, thesis, antithesis, and then the synthesis. So these are the main themes that I think, I have found, and as the, conversation goes on, maybe I would like to read certain passages, certain sentences, which are very revealing and very amazing, in my view, and again reflects the depth of the observations of the author.
Okay, thank you very much for that detailed exploration of themes. We'll come back to you later. One of the strengths of this novel is that as Pakistani writers, normally they look at our society from an external perspective, from the foreigner's perspective. So if you have read Mohsin Hamid and Muhammad Hanif or Hanif Qureshi, or other Pakistani writers who write in English, they often talk about My Son, the Fanatic, or the exploding case of mangoes, or reluctant fundamentalists. So these are the things that normally the foreigners think about Pakistan. But this is an insider's view. So that is something which is a daring thing to do, Arshad Waheed. I would like to congratulate on that, because normally when we write novel in English, that's for the international market. And in order to compete, sometimes we have to look at ourselves the way they define us. But Arshad Waheed didn't do that. So that's something which I personally liked about it. Now, Shazia, I would like to take your, how did you find as a reader? And in particular, I would also say that how is it that a male writer has written so wonderfully well about female characters? Most of the characters are women characters, and they are so bold.
So it's basically that cliche he might have break that the women writers, they always have this flavor, like you can tell that there is a woman behind these emotions. So it's also a thesis that women cannot be a good philosopher or something. So it could be like a male can again is good enough to express the female emotions. So yet again another male is expressing female emotions. So it's a very big debate, and it's a very happening debate in literature, like how you can detach your individuality from what you are writing, actually. So for being a male, you have to detach yourself, because you are not a female and you are writing something which is totally from the opposite gender perspective. So that could be my answer on that. But I want to start from the idea, like how I perceive this novel. It is written on the backdrop of 70s. We have discussed it. But for for younger generation, what 70s would have been like, it is yet to be explored. And what he has done, he has documented what was that area, what was that era, how people actually, how people were going through a certain degree of transition. It was a transitional period, and people were getting introduced to new ideologies and isms and Western lenses, and they were trying to experiment the different political philosophies like socialism, like communism, and other, and then comes the fundamentalism. So it was like the bombardment of ism era, which is not the today's phenomena. So we are not that receptive to these things now. So people were idealistic. They were very much into these isms and ideologies. So it was not like for us right now. It was not like we have trialed and tested them, and they are not like. I mean, everything is. Please excuse myself. Everything is bullshit. I mean, how can you have an ideology of a certain ideology for your life, and you just go for that, and then you have a perfect particular life? No, we know now. But the people living in those periods, they adhere those ideologies. They live with those ideologies, and they think that, yes, we are going to transform the world. And the word transformation is possible. There will be a utopia. Life will be changed, and the capitalism could be fight. We can fight it like one way or other. So for younger generation, this novel is very important to understand an entire generation, mainly the generation, like, except 2 or 3 people sitting here, like what they have went through, why they were so prone to dreaming about big ideas, and why we are not now dreaming big ideas. So it's basically, its plot is also cyclical, like in circles. It revolves around the ideas like how one generation dream about something and then end up doing the same what is not supposed to be done in that ideological term. So you can see an existential crisis in that. People ask me, I mean, you study philosophy and semiotic and all that, so what ism you actually follow? So I always tell them that I am an existentialist with stoic face. So I have to pretend that I am contented and sab theek hai, Allah ka shukr hai, and that's in our culture. So I have this scholastic and stoic expression on my face, but still I am existentialist. I am still looking for my place in this world. So that's what the characters of this novel actually they are doing. They are fighting to find a place for their own existence. That if we are here, then why? And if we want to be somewhere else, then how? And then there is another element of estrangement, which Arshad Saab has created marvelously. That estrangement is basically all the characters find themselves misfit in whatever situation they are. So the character of Sara, she was misfit in the society in 70s when she was studying in Punjab University. Oh, he hasn't mentioned the name of the university, but there are so many things I can actually relate with them, and they are so clearly articulated. But when she was studying here, she was not happy with the moral policing, the social oppressions, and the politics in the universities, and and with the parents, and with other societal norms. I mean, she was not happy. But novel also has shown us that she was not even happy when she was abroad. So, and she was not happy. She was still finding the place when she was a mother. So she was fighting for one thing for herself, and then she was, you know, she was reluctant again at certain point for the same thing for her daughter. So this is the story of you and me. I mean, this is the story of me. I mean, if you want to exclude yourself, so it's the story of a person who is in this, you know, chaotic situation, political polarization, and religious diversion. I will not use the word extremism. I mean, religion is not a bad thing. Religion always give us a certain type of sanctity to move on, to live on. But yet we have different opinions, and we have parallel phenomena of religion as well in our society. So the chaos, it all started in the 70s. And we are still in that, you know, in the vacuum, finding for the place to stand, like who we are and what actually we want to do. That's the question that novel is actually giving us with the character and with the. But I will not linger it on, because I was not supposed to discuss. I mean, give the discourse analysis and the critical analysis of the novel. I was decided to go on the technical side most, but I mean, I just carried away. I will come back to the idea of the how it has been written. So, if from the critical perspective, first of all, for me, I mean, and the expression is always subjective. So for me, it is existentialist genre, using the elements of estrangement and nostalgia. Two key elements are being used as the basic narrative tool. Like the characters are estranged, the situations are estranged for them and for the surrounding, and the dilemma of nostalgia. I mean, you want to live where you, I mean, in the past moment. You want to go back there, and you fancy the ideas and the life which you have been through, but you are not happy then in that situation, but you want to go back to that situation. So the element of nostalgia is very much there, and also it is there is a very big issue, I mean, which I find out. I was reading a book about conventionalism and normativity, titled Queer Art of Failure, and this book is all about like how we want to be socially, culturally, religiously appropriate to fit in. And we spend our entire life to be accepted and to be fit in. And the professor who wrote that book, she is head of the Department of Gender Studies. Her point was that if you want to live your life, you have to be queer enough. I'm not talking about queer in the gender terms, like in today's gender or the sexual orientation term. I'm talking about being queer is like being different, being bold, being not acceptable. So she said that if you are not queer enough to fail, then you cannot live. So you will spend your entire life to be accepted, and you will spend your entire life to bow down in front of the throne of normativity. So she said that we have normativity, normalcy, conventionalism on the throne. So you have to do this and you don't have to do that, and the list of do's and don't is all dictated by the conventionalism, all described by the what is normal, and no one is queer enough to say and shout that I do not want to be fit in, I am misfit enough to be tagged as a failure. So I am a failure, so let's own it. Achhi bachchi, I'm not, I mean, अच्छी लड़की, perfect बीवी, अच्छी बहन, कामयाब शौहर, I mean, कामयाब businessman. So if we are not bold enough to say that we are not that what you are asking us to be. So I find the relevance of this idea and the ideology of characters, that these characters are also dare enough that they are basically shouting out loud that we are not perfect, we are failures, we are queer, and the total sum is we are human beings, and that's what being human is. That's human phenomena. So we could be misfit in situation A, we could be misfit in situation B, so there is no ideal situation, there is no ideal ideology, there is no ideal circumstances, and there is no ideal stereotype in which you want to fix us. So that could be very interesting if you read this novel with the lens of this normativity and this conventionalism. But the most interesting thing is that Arshad Waheed used zero focalization, and focalization is basically the new semiotic term. We previously used to use the narrative perspective. So that's the equivalence of narrative perspective. So narrative perspective is a different thing, but focalization is how writer actually write it's the piece what he or she is writing. And if you use zero focalization, then you lose all control over the narrative. So you do not dictate the events or the characters to act or behave or the situations to move according to your own personal will. So the first thing which you feel in this novel is that writer is deliberately using zero focalization and using the characters to narrate the story openly, like without any boundaries. And the writer is not even there. He's not giving you any judgment. He's not giving you any personal idea or ideology. Like, if this would have been done, that could have been the right version of. I mean, there are characters who has who have the not perfect life. Like, for example, the character Sara, she could have been socially misfit. At some point, her family disowned her, but you couldn't find the writer there to tell us that Sara is a good girl or Sara is a bad girl. So you cannot find any character either good or bad, because writer is using zero focalization and not giving you any judgment. But I felt I was like disgust at some point, because being a out and open feminist, I still adhere the social principles of our culture and society. So my feminism is very, very, very strange in nature. So I cannot say, I cannot write a slogan के हमारी society के मत बुरे होते हैं और मेरे साथ जो है हम सब इनके लिए बाहर निकले हुए हैं और वगैरह वगैरह. I have seen a very kind father, a very caring brother. So मेरा perspective, I have a different perspective about feminism. So I'm not ready, I'm not yet ready to accept or copycat the feminism taken from abroad. So I have my own version of feminism.
Okay,
so
Shazia, I think as an expert you have quite a lot to say about this novel. So, but the one thing that she has talked about is that every character in this novel is a misfit, and that's what the title suggests, Other Days. So in the beginning, like in 1970s, they have an ideology and they want a future which is different from present. And then in future, they want to explore their past. So they either live in future or they live in past. They never find their present, the moment in which they can actually live. Yeah, so that's what, so no matter which days you talk about, it's always about other days. And the second thing that you have talked about, zero focalization, well, Arshad Waheed actually is neutral on it. He doesn't have any agenda to forward.
That's very visible.
Yeah, and I think he has deliberately put a restraint on himself, and he lets the characters speak for themselves, and you don't find even a single character. I was trying to look for any character who could be his mouthpiece, but I couldn't find any. And that's my next actually question for Arshad Waheed. Did you consciously try not to be not to include your spokesperson and be restrained? And in particular, apart from this general story, you also have the parallel story of Daud, who is also a major character. And Daud is a poet, he is also a novelist, and he wants to write his story, which he could never complete. And this dream also died, just like other political and ideological dreams. But he talks about his characters being out of control, as if he is not their puppeteer. Instead, like puppets, they have their own selves. And at times, Daud feels, who is also the author, he feels that he is not in control of his own characters. Did you also feel that way, or could that be your mouthpiece, or?
No, I don't think any of this character is my mouthpiece. I would like to take some references from Milan Kundera, what is his theory of novel. And he distinguishes novel from other disciplines of knowledge in social sciences, where he thinks that all social sciences reduce the reality, and whereas there is no universal reality anywhere. And characters in the novel sometimes, and most of the times, they get independent of the writer himself. I mean, writer may have certain ideas, but his characters find their own ways. And he also says that any novelist who is more intelligent than his characters is not a good novelist. So life is like this. It doesn't say that this is, I mean, either or. It's not like either or. There are a lot of exploration of life, and it continues. So I have tried, and characters want to be understood, not to be judged, right? So all my effort was, even if I had certain ideas, I have never tried to play it with characters. And there is a whole scene in it in which a puppeteer plays with his puppets. He wants him to continue to play for him.
Yeah, sorry for interruption, but I would like you to read out that passage so that the audience can have a flavor of that. If you could just read out that portion where the puppeteer feels.
I have this. Okay. I'll be brief, maybe just 5 minutes, so that.
Thank you.
Well, this is a predicament of the writer who is struggling to complete his story, and all this the passages I want to read out for you is this drama is being played out in his own mind, right? And he's trying to write that. Now I may have to change the glasses, maybe. This is the dialogue between puppeteer and his puppets and shadows. And one of the puppets says, "You nurtured us in your own imagination, but out of your mind, here, we have found that things are different. You wanted us to tell the story of many centuries, but not a single life is similar to what you have imagined. We are lost. We need to recover and find our way on our own." I mean, just a little background, because he conceived this story like 30, 40 years before. And now when he again comes back to his homeland, things have changed. So all his characters are now strangers for him. And even characters and the writer both are strangers to each other. I can still show you the way, the puppeteer said. Without responding, the puppet started moving away. The puppeteer pulled at the string again. The puppet stopped and looked up at him. Okay, tell us where to go. Right. Right then, but I have no idea what to do with you. The puppeteer loosened the string again. The puppet turned into a shadow and started fading away. Then it stopped, turned to him and said, "You told us most of the stories, but they are being narrated differently here. How can we believe you anymore?" So you want to change the story too? Don't try to make us feel guilty. We have to be relevant to the current situation. We are left with no choice. The puppeteer was tired, but he replied, Everything here runs in various cross currents. A story from one time becomes strange in another time, as it's interpreted by the people of another era through the sensibility, memories, and imagination of their own time. Powerful winds blew across the stage, and it started raining heavily. The puppet shrank behind a shelter. The one who becomes a stranger to his time and people need a strong attachment to a certain imagination or an idea to hold himself together, the puppeteer said, as if talking to an imaginary character on stage. So you just want to preserve your past in the form of words and letters. The puppet emerged from behind shelter and sneered. The puppeteer made an attempt to convince his puppets someone should talk about the past as well to save it from being forgotten. It will be forgotten anyway, the young puppet interrupted. And why should one preserve something that can never be the same, something that's always being reconstructed in new forms? Yes, it cannot be the same, but I want you to do it for my own sake. The puppeteer's voice became weaker as he spoke. What do you want to know? The first shadow, which was now struggling to find shelter from the rain, asked. The link between people's lives and certain patterns of thought. And let me just finish it. Everyone kept waiting for the puppeteer to speak. However, instead of him, the young puppet spoke up in a clear and strong voice. You wanted to show all these characters and shadows of different times as living in one place, right? The puppeteer was silent, struggling to understand whether the young shadow was sympathetic to him or ridiculing him. I don't want to die before I see the end of this play. I want my friends, my contemporaries to watch this play with me. So this is not for us, but for you and your friends alone, the crowd shouted in chorus. I'll get my freedom only when this play is staged, he said, sounding exhausted. So you made us your prisoners only for your own freedom, the crowd shouted again. Then everyone fell silent for some time. Only the low sound of music coming from some other time was audible. The puppet started disappearing. As they searched for a place to sleep or tried to run away from there, only the young puppet stayed and watched the other puppet disappear. He said to the puppeteer, It seems your play is lost in time. No story is big or small. It is the audience that makes it big, great, or otherwise. No play is complete without its audience. It is the audience that completes the play. You had better find some audience who want to watch your play. Show it to them. The puppeteer listened to him carefully, but he was not interested in what he meant again. He was just trying to figure out if the young puppet was being sympathetic or sarcastic.
Well, I said that it was a parallel plot because the major character, the main character, Sara, I would just read out one or two lines in which this connects with what puppeteer and puppets were doing. So Sara, she finds herself in a strange world, and she says, "It's not me. I am becoming a stranger to myself." It was as if an unknown shadow were all over and around her. Every day was a dilemma of whether to eliminate that shadow or escape it. Every evening she thought it would get smaller soon. Every morning it rose again with even more darkness within it. So rather than the novelist commenting on these characters, you actually have Daud and his story and his dilemma, which is parallel, but I think it also provides commentary over the main character. And it also, I think, expresses your art of novel as you have translated. It was originally written in French. Art of novel is its English translation, and you translated it into Urdu. So you are never more intelligent than your characters. Your characters speak for themselves. And he also, I think within these lines, Daud also, one of the puppets actually declared that the role of the author actually ends once the characters are produced, when the world of novel is created. And then it's up to the readers how they interpret it. They infuse life into it. And this is how I think I would come back to you. It has been long since we talked to Waqas. Waqas, we will come back to you. You talked about Pakistani diaspora in UK, and you did your PhD from University of London. You lived there. Yeah. And I would like you to focus on two questions. One is how the lives of immigrants has been expressed in this novel, and the younger generation that was growing there, what kind of generation gap you find there. And the role of Sara, as you mentioned, as a mother, and then, as a daughter, and then as a mother. How did it change?
Yeah, so if you want, so one thing that I wanted to say was that it is, again, the kind of person you are, and a forward-looking man, but the kind of restraint that you exercise while writing the novel, and not really making any of the characters your mouthpiece, is commendable. Because I think this ought to be, commended, because it's a commendable thing. Exercising restraint, and not sometimes the characters, they are exasperated, they are seething with anger, but they are not saying anything which tells you that the author wants to say something. So this restraint that you exercise is commendable in my view. So now coming to address your question, I will not say anything from my side. I will just read out certain passages of the book, because they brilliantly explain it. So let's begin with the reflection of the predicament faced by the diaspora community. So there is this character, Zulekha, whom Sara meets when she's on her way to Great Britain. And now she's a very caring person, loving person, ready to extend a helping hand. But at the same time, she holds all those ideas that she learned when she was a child in Pakistan. So let me just, I go there and tell you what she's trying to tell Sara. Now, you have to keep in mind that Sara is an iconoclast. She doesn't fit in the society that she's living in. She wants to break free. She wants to assert her independence. And now, for reasons that if you read the novel, you will find why she has to go to UK. Now she meets a woman, and in a way she needs her, because somebody has to look after the young kid, her daughter, Sami. But then now see what Zulekha is saying. My daughter has, let me, okay, a bit of the reason that why they, well, so you know, people go there to make money, they are not well off or whatever, so everybody leaves their homeland because they are seeking something. So, of course, they have gone for some, you know, financial fortune. So, now what she says to Sara, my younger daughter has grown up now. This is a different society. We have to take extra care of our kids. My daughter's is nice. Don't think she isn't obedient, but still, we should go back and find a suitable match for her. Achha, this is a problem. You go there, and now I found it very hard to stomach that you know, the kids have grown up there, and they are looking for a match back home, and not in that society. So it's very strange that those you are raised in that society, but somehow the parents have managed to, you know, either alienate you or kind of make you aloof from what is happening around you, and you have not been able to integrate in that society. Or the parents are forcing their will upon the child. So she says that you might be knowing good families there, right? Because he has just come, so she's asking. She didn't wait for her answer and continued, when our girls grow up, we should go back to our homeland, to our culture. They can even continue their studies there. So apparently there is this insinuation that they have made enough and they think that they can go back and you know, lead a comfortable life. They can even continue their studies there. The girls are naive at this age. So this is again this misunderstanding of the parents that the kids are naive. So they think their consciousness has not grown, they are always there, and they are the wise people who should always dictate their lives. And then, may God keep her on the right path. So again, I don't think that he dwells on this, but this is also, I can take it as a sarcastic comment also, that may God keep her on the right path. The question is, what is the right path? Because what is the right path for Sara? Sara would be a very bad path for Zulaikha, you know. So this is the kind of thing that you go in a society, now you have made some money, you have made a fortune, but you somehow think that your cultural values are superior than theirs. And you think you are a misfit, and now you want to go back, and you want to thrust upon your values on your kids. So this is the kind of attitude you see that you see over there. Then there is another thing also, which I would like to quickly read out. She rented a different house in her neighborhood, Sara, a locality full of Asian immigrants, mostly from Pakistan. They lived in a close network of families. Now this is actual depiction of what is like in you know, let's say in South Hall, in Ilford, in the East London. So they lived in a closed network of families trying to keep their traditions intact. So it can be, you know, both good and bad. So when you're trying to keep your traditions intact, at the same time you refuse to embrace the new things that you can learn over there. So this is kind of a very strange thing, and this is a predicament of the immigrants, I would say. Observing strict norms and protecting and maintaining their identity in an alien society. So I do not really understand what do we mean by identity. So let's say if I go to UK to, you know, learn science, so I should also be open to learn their way of life and why they are a better society, why they have managed to build these institutions which we have not managed to build. But no, we have our own perception of things. And they feared that this new culture might take their faith, values, and traditions away from their children. Most of Sami's time was spent with them whenever she stayed. So she goes on and on. But this is the kind of thing, you know, that the diaspora community, you know, feels. And I think I would say some people are very innocent and they don't get into the nitty-gritty of things and they don't really try and understand, because this kind of thing needs a lot of introspection.
So actually this looks quite interesting, because the characters feel misfit here and they want to go abroad in search of identity, and then they find misfit there and they want to return back. And when they come back, they find out it's वो क्या शेर था जो आप सब
वापस ना जा वहाँ कि तेरे शहर में मुनीर जो जिस जगह पर था वहाँ पर नहीं रहा. तो ये
so this is very I think obvious in this novel that when they try to trace their identity by coming back to Pakistan, they find once again they find themselves a misfit. Shazi, I would like to ask just a brief comment on this. You were talking about this transitional period. I think in early 1970s, people believed in different isms and they had ideologies. And then gradually, our society became more extremist and violent. There are many incidences. In fact, these are the major life-turning events that happen in Sara's life. So would you like to say something about it and how, in particular, how women are more prone to it and vulnerable when it comes to violence and extremism?
If I understand your question, like you want me to comment on the
role of
transition from 70s till now with the women perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
So, according to the novel or my own perspective?
According to the novel, actually.
So,
because this is one of the major themes in the novel.
Yeah, so
I think
this
it shouldn't
novel
be missed.
is basically it could be a historiography as well. So there is a city like there is no name of the city. Its name is Sheher. So a certain place called Sheher is mentioned in this novel. So, but I can trace that Sheher to Lahore and very openly can say that. I feel that it is Lahore, so that's my subjective perception. And there are things which I can relate with myself as a transition period. So as I was talking that I born in 78, so I cannot claim that मैंने 70 देखा हुआ है. So I saw the glorious period. I born in that period of Ziaul Haq, Rai Haq and Rai Najat. So that was the time when I experienced. I had my first embodied experience in this world. But before that, it was different in a sense. Like as I was told earlier, that 70s was different just in a way that the ideology, what people were pursuing are different. But people were ideological. I mean, it was not like, as it diminished with the passage of time. But people were ideological and they follow different ideologies, whatever they were. And then we have this Muslim ideology for like 10, 11 years. So this novel actually shows the transition of that, starting from the 70s when people were looking for a revolution. People were trying to be more socialist and looking for a socialist society and going against the capitalism. So novel also has this, and the characters are facing that situation as well, that they are stuck somewhere. At one side they have their cultural boundaries, and the other side they have their own ideological philosophies, their own ideals, larger than life. They want to do that. But the other side, they have their families, their norms, their culture. So that was there in 70s as well. Then novel transcend towards the more extreme times when there is at one point you have your own cultural identities, like in the form of your parents and your relatives and your society. You have your own ideologies in the form of being socialist or idealist. And then there is another force which is telling you the difference between right and wrong. And that force is somewhat religious, but the novel has not mentioned it. Like, novel has not mentioned any ideology, any ism, any religion. It's up to us. It's again subjective that what we can interpret from it. So the novel also tells us that when we have these religious movements, extremism in universities, when this student culture has started, when students were being bullied by the religious extremists, by the religious ideologies. So novel also has experienced that. The characters are experiencing it, that how they are being refrained from doing so and so. So novel also has that there is also a group of people emerging within the society. Those are going back to their roots. So its plot is cyclical. It has many things. Starting from, like, I am the product of 70s, so I have an ideology, so I am going to a university, and university, I have a student union which is more religiously intolerant, so that student union is telling me what to wear, what not to whom I can sit with and to whom I can talk with. And with that, we have another group of people who are going back to their roots, and they are sitting in groups, and they are studying Heer Ranjha, and they are studying, they are going and trying to rediscover their culture, and they are going back to their roots, and they are going back to their linguistic originals. So characters are also experience them as well, these things as well. But your point was that the main characters are female, so the entire narrative is being woven in the female perspective. So we see a woman struggling for the personal identity in the 70s, struggling for the social acceptance in the 80s and 90s, a woman struggling for, again, finding the identity in the West. So it's the story of women, like it has a feminist perspective, not the male perspective, and I can see the trickiness in that. Why, and it's again subjective, that why Arshad Waheed has chosen these female character instead of male character. It may have been more of, like, stereotyped, more of like expected behavior, if these dialogues and these situations are being shown with the relevance of a male character. But then with the female character, it has a different perspective. It gives you entire different scenario of the situation.
Shazia, I think you also have expertise on Punjabi theatre. In fact, there is a great role of Punjabi folklore in it. So this story of Heer Ranjha, and if you look at the female characters in it, they are very bold in Punjabi. Like in Soni Maiwal, it's the main role is actually played by Soni, and like in Heer Ranjha, it's Heer that's the central character.
Yeah, if you just give me 1 minute, so I can just, like the Heer Ranjha, it's a very touchy subject for me. So Heer Ranjha is not a story, it's a philosophy of a time. So Heer is basically what a Punjabi woman is before Zia's time. अभी भी कोई अगर ये कहता है कि पंजाब की औरत oppressed है, पंजाब की औरत जो है उसको ज़रूरत है मर्द से आज़ादी हासिल करने की. So my point of view is always that our Punjabi women is always economically and socially strong. Our Punjabi women, our men are only, they are doing farming, and the entire domestic the entire domestic situation is handled by the women, from making big decisions to handling the economy of the situation. So Heer Ranjha is actually the story. It's not a story, it's a philosophy of life, and it's what a Punjabi culture is, and we can relate this to this story as well. So our women, they are decisive, they are opinionated, so do whatever you want to, to suppress them, but they have their opinion, and because they they are ancestors of those who had their opinions.
So exactly. So apart from Sara, we actually have Zulekha, we have Sami, we have Bano. All of them are actually quite bold in their stance, and they are iconoclast. And even the people who apparently they believe in socialism, they have their restraints. And when it comes to breaking cultural barriers, they don't actually go beyond it, but the women character they do. So I think it's time now we should open. So if there are any questions from the audience, well, it was quite natural to talk about this novel in English, but you don't have to ask your questions in English. If you feel comfortable, you can ask it in any language. I mean,
I prefer
even
Punjabi.
We are all Punjabis, so Punjabi, Urdu or English, whichever. So please
Mic,
just be
they are asking
wait
for
for the
mic,
mic, okay? ये माइक आप तक पहुंचता है तो तब काइंडली सवाल कीजिएगा.
Why people, when there comes a struggle and you are to stay against the orders of society, particularly, for example, when Zia era is coming, Musharraf's era coming, and the all onslaughts and the fall of the, you can say, Dhaka was there, why they not have the political will? And it's said that men, when get married, he become king, and when a woman get married, she becomes slave. So still we are saying that ladies and women are being slaughtered and being made victim. When we will rise to that one, and how much he was depicting such character as a objective and subjective.
Okay, so Arshad Waheed sir, would you like to? जी जी, शाजिया go ahead.
जो पॉलिटिक्स और सोसाइटी है वो इसी तरह साथ साथ ही चलते हैं, और बहादुरी की बात फिर ये होती है कि राइटर जो है वो पॉलिटिक्स को और सोशल फिनोमिना को फिर साथ साथ कैसे लेके चलता है. तो मेरा ख्याल है अगर आपका सवाल ये था कि पॉलिटिक्स डिसाइड करती है सोसाइटी क्या होती है और सोसाइटी जो है वो उसकी स्लेव होती है, तो आप किसी हद तक ठीक है.
जी सलीम रसूल साहब.
मैं ये पूछना चाहता हूँ कि in 70s people used to cherish this ism and idealism. I think it was good for the society, क्योंकि जब सोसाइटी में आइडियलिज्म होता है तो दे हैव सम होप बर्निंग इन देयर हार्ट्स. लेकिन जब सोसाइटी इससे बिल्कुल उसको छोड़ देती है तो फिर ये जो सारी ट्रांजिशन हुई है अब तक, ये असल में क्या आप ये समझते हैं कि ये इज़म को छोड़ देने की वजह से ये सारी अब सोसाइटी कंफ्यूज हो चुकी है, उसमें कोई किसी किस्म का अब डायरेक्शन नहीं है, डायरेक्शन लेस हो गई है. तो ये डिपिक्ट उसमें बड़े अच्छे तरीके से नावल में किया गया है, जो 70s के जो हालात थे पॉलिटिकल भी और सोशल भी. तो ये ट्रांजिशन आप ये समझते हैं कि ये हमारी सोसाइटी में जो हुई है, एक्सट्रीमिज़म भी आया है और बहुत सारी चीज़ें ऐसी आई हैं जो सोसाइटी डायरेक्शन लेस हो गई है. उस वक्त कम अज़ कम ये डायरेक्शन एक मुतय्यन, चाहे वो लेफ़्ट थे या राइट थे, तो उन्होंने की हुई थी. लेकिन बाद में फिर ये सारी चीज़ें जो है ना वो ख़त्म हो गई हैं और ये सोसाइटी कंफ्यूज हो गई.
जी वक़ास साहब, आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
मैं कहना चाह रहा हूँ कि मैं, क्योंकि हम यहाँ पे नावल की बात करने आए हैं, तो ये नावल जो है ना वो इन मामलात के ऊपर बात नहीं कर रहा, वो जो ह्यूमन रिलेशनशिप्स की इंट्रिकेसीज हैं उनके बारे में बात कर रहा है. तो अगर हम उसके ऊपर फोकस करें तो ज़्यादा बेहतर है, क्योंकि नावल जो है वो मुआशरा क्यों तब्दील हो रहा है, क्या वजूहात थी जिसकी वजह से वो तब्दील हुआ है, वो मुख्तलिफ इंसानों के माबैन जो रिश्ते हैं वो उनकी जो इंट्रिकेसीज हैं उन पे फोकस कर रहा है. तो मेरा ख्याल है कि ये वाली बात जो है, इट्स अ ब्यूटीफुल क्वेश्चन, बट मतलब विद रेफरेंस टू टुडेज़ टॉक आई वुड से कि या टुडेज़ डिस्कशन, मेरा ख्याल है नावल पे अगर हम रहें तो वो ज़्यादा एक मुनासिब.
जी, बल्कि अगर नावल के अंदर से ही देखा जाए तो ये तो बहुत इनकी स्ट्रॉन्ग आइडियोलॉजीज़ थी, लेकिन 2000 के बाद अहमर जब रिपोर्ट कर रहा है अफ़गानिस्तान से तो ही फाइंड्स इट क्वाइट मीनिंगलेस. तो ये ट्रांजिशन है जो इस नावल में हमें नज़र आती है, ये कि हम एक मीनिंगफुल सोसाइटी से मीनिंगलेस केओस और कन्फ्यूजन की तरफ जो है वो बढ़ें. लेकिन मेरा ख्याल है वो पोस्ट ट्रूथ इरा
नहीं, लेकिन
ये उनकी रीडिंग है ना.
मैं एड्रेस करना चाहूँगी कि आपका सवाल बिल्कुल रेलेवेंट है. मैं इससे थोड़ा सा احترام کے ساتھ ڈس ایگری کرتی ہوں، کیونکہ جب اوپن ڈسکشن ہوتی ہے تو ہر بندے نے کتاب نہیں پڑھی ہوتی ہے، تو وہ سوال ڈسکشن سے بھی نکلتا ہے اور سوال جو ہے وہ پرسنل پرسیپشن سے بھی نکلتا ہے، اور سوال جواب ہوتے ہی اس لیے ہیں کہ آپ کتاب سے ہٹ کر ہم مل کر کچھ بات کرتے ہیں. تو آپ جتنا مختصر میں ہو سکتا ہے میں ان کے خدمت میں اپنا جواب جو ہے وہ پیش کرنے کی کوشش کرتی ہوں. یہ جو میری ذاتی رائے یہ ہے کہ ازم اور فلاسفی جو ہیں جو ہمیں بہت فیسینیٹ کرتی ہیں، ہاں واقعی انہوں نے ایک ہمیں زندگی کا راستہ تو ضرور دیا ہوا تھا، لیکن انہوں نے ہمیں ایک ویسٹرن لینس بھی دیا. تو ان کو میں ایک سائڈ پہ بہت اچھی چیز اور اسی سائڈ پہ ان کو ایک اچھی بہت بری چیز بھی سمجھتی ہوں. ہمارے پاس ہمارے جو بڑوں کی باتیں ہیں، بابا بلے کا کلام ہے، وارث شاہ کا ہے، ان کے اندر ہمیں بہت کچھ ایسے ازم سے بھی بہت کچھ آگے کے آئیڈیلز بتا دیے گئے ہوئے ہیں جو کہ ہم سے ڈیلیبریٹلی چھین لیے گئے. پھر اس بحث میں ہم پھر چلے جائیں گے. تو یہ 70s میں خاص طور پہ ایسا نہیں ہوا ہے، یہ اس سے بہت پہلے ہم سے ہو چکا ہوا ہے. ہم سے انگریز یہ رنجیت سنگھ کے بعد سے جو کچھ ہمارے ساتھ کر گئے ہوئے ہیں، وہ کیونکہ کہانی کا کینوس صرف 70s سے سٹارٹ ہوتا ہے، تو یہاں تک آپ کا پوائنٹ بالکل ٹھیک ہے کہ آئیڈیلز لائف کے لیے بہت ضروری ہوتے ہیں، اور ایک قوم کو مردہ کرنے کے لیے آپ اس کے آئیڈیلز اس سے چھین لیتے ہیں. اور یہ ہم سے پہلی دفعہ 70s میں ازم چھین کے نہیں ہوا، یہ اس سے بہت پہلے ہو چکا ہوا تھا.
نیکسٹ کویسچن لیں.
دو مختصر سی باتیں میں کہنا چاہوں گا. ایک تو مطلب ناول کے حساب سے، اور دوسرا یہ کہ میرا خیال ہے یہ بھی بہت زیادہ سوچنا ایک وکٹم سائیکالوجی کے ساتھ کہ ہمارے ساتھ بڑا ظلم ہوا اور انگریز ہم سے چھین کر لے گئے. اس سے پہلے کائنات کے سارے سوال ہمارے بڑوں نے دیے ہوئے تھے. میں ذاتی طور پر اس سے ایگری نہیں کرتا، اور میں نہیں سمجھتا کہ ہم اپنی ساری اپنی تاریخ کو اپنی ایک اپریسڈ سائیکی کے ساتھ انالائز کریں. اور ویسٹرن لینس کے ساتھ آپ جتنا بھی اختلاف کر سکتے ہیں وہ کریں، لیکن اس نے بہت کچھ آپ کو انسائٹس دی بھی ہیں. اور اس میں جو مین کیریکٹرز ہیں، جو احمر کا اور وہ جو سارا کی بیٹی کا ہے، وہ بنیادی طور پر ٹریڈیشن اور فارورڈ لکنگ پہ یا ریشنیلٹی پہ، ٹریڈیشن اور ریشنیلٹی کے ایک جو ہے نا کیریکٹرز ڈائلاگ اس میں کر رہے ہیں. اور دوسرا آپ نے جو بہت سارا ہسٹری کا کویسچن پوچھا ہے، تو میں یہ سمجھتا ہوں ناول بنیادی طور پر، یعنی یہ جو لوگ لکھتے ہیں کچھ بھی کہہ رہے ہیں، آپ ہسٹوریوگرافی کہہ لیں یا کچھ کہہ لیں، لیکن بنیادی طور پر دے فوکس آن انٹرنل لائفز آف ہیومن بینگس اینڈ دیئر پریڈیکمنٹس، اور ان کا جو اپنے آپ کو ایک سوسائٹی میں کس طرح ڈیل کرنا ہے، اس کے ساری وہ ہیں. اس میں ہسٹری، پولیٹیکل آئیڈیاز، وہ بھی ایک طرح سے کریکٹرز بن جاتے ہیں. certain phase of history is the character in novels language. تو وہ کوئی ہسٹری کو پروو یا ڈس پروو کرنے کے لیے نہیں آ رہے. ہسٹری اس کریکٹرز میں یا اس سٹیج پہ جو اپنا انفلوئنس کر رہی ہے وہ اس کو بیان کر رہی ہے.
جی جی. اور آپ کے ناول میں تو وہ شیکلز کو توڑ بھی رہے ہوتے ہیں کیریکٹرز جو میموری کے انسلیوڈ ہیں، اور وہ اس سے آزادی چاہ بھی رہے ہوتے ہیں. جی نیکسٹ کویسچن.
I haven't read the novel, so I can't ask an informed question. But let me ask you, how did you write it? How long it took? I know. How long it took you to write it? And what were the different stages? Did you have a flow of writing? Tell us how you wrote it. What's the because everybody here wants to write a novel. But what is the process of doing that every day?
Well, it's Ehsan, my friend, is here and he knows all these phases I was writing it. I had this idea way back, like maybe 10-15 years before, and I had not worked on it. Then there were different stages I worked on this. It was quite a different story in the beginning. When I started writing it, I had something different in my mind. But later on, when the story developed and the characters developed, they took their own way, and I followed them. A lot of things, a lot of events, they were deleted just to make it a well-knit story, maybe. And the process was very painful, actually. not only that, going through this novel, which is actually a very sad story, every time when I finished one round of this reading and editing it, I went through many, many months of depression, actually. And I didn't know what was the cause, and later I knew that I'm reading it again and again, and it is causing depression. And the other thing is that many a time I thought that it's going nowhere. I'm not writing anything, which is worth giving this much time, energies, and focus. And I was very much emotionally attached to it, but there were many moments when I said that it would go nowhere. All the time I have consumed, it is just a waste. It would go nowhere. And then and many a time I wanted to just leave it. But that was not a solution either. So at the end I just wanted that it should be finished and it should be out of my mind. And that was the whole thing I tried to achieve, that I should get rid of it actually. It should be away from me. It should not be part of me. And that I did, and then I just got relaxed. So that was the process.
So how many years or months it took you?
Yeah. Well, I think if you take it from the first time I had this idea and I started writing, there were a lot of my some other personal engagements with my family and others, so I had to leave it many times. So maybe 5-6 years, I think.
I also had a comment. Actually, even if it doesn't go anywhere, it will come to the black hole.
अच्छा जी, मैं सवाल तो कोई नहीं, कारी की हैसियत से मैं भी अपने तासुरात पेश कर दूं। तो जब ये नावल छपा था उसी हफ्ते मैंने इसे पढ़ा था, तो जो कुछ हाफ़ज़े में महफूज रह गया है इसमें, एक मैं शायर या राइटर नहीं हूँ, तो मैं तो एंड यूज़र के तौर पे बात कर रहा हूँ। तो कोई भी फ़िक्शन की चीज़ मैं पढ़ता हूँ तो मेरा ये तरीका है कि जी 50 सफ़े तक अगर तो उसने इंगेज कर लिया तो ठीक है, अदरवाइज़ आई लीव इट। चूँकि इतनी चीज़ें लोग रिकमेंड करते हैं, इतने फिक्शन नॉवेल्स और शॉर्ट स्टोरीज नॉवेल्स आते हैं। शायरी तो ऐसी चीज़ है कि वो आपको स्टार्ट टू एंड पढ़नी पड़ती कि शायद कोई बीच में ढंग का शेर या अच्छी नज़्म आ जाए, लेकिन फ़िक्शन का ज़रा अलग से उसके लिए काफ़ी एफ़र्ट चाहिए होती है। तो उस काउंट पे तो ये हुआ कि मैंने ये नावल शुरू किया और मुझे पता नहीं चला कि 50वां सफ़ा जो कब का गुज़र चुका है। तो उस हवाले से मतलब मेरे लिए बड़ा एक इंटरेस्टिंग और रहा ये एक्सपीरियंस इनका नावल पढ़ने का। इसमें सबसे जो बात मुझे नज़र आई, जो कि मैंने काफ़ी ये वक़ास साहब बात कर रहे थे डायस्पोरा की, जो बाहर बहुत सारे इस वक्त सेलिब्रेटेड राइटर्स हैं अपना, उसमें ज़ुबान का मैं देखता हूँ कि बहुत ज़्यादा एक ऑर्नामेंटल लैंग्वेज या फ्रेजेस और इस तरह की चीज़ें आती हैं। तो इन्होंने जो ज़ुबान लिखी उसमें एक बड़ी बरजस्तगी और बेसाख्तगी है, एक फ़्लो उसके अंदर कहीं ये शऊरी कोशिश नज़र नहीं आती कि वेयर राइटर इज़ ट्राइंग टू इम्प्रेस विद हिज लैंग्वेज स्किल्स, एक्सप्रेशन और वो सारा। मतलब कोई 20 साल पहले मैं मिला था ये नदीम असलम, उनका नावल आया था मैप ऑफ लॉस्ट लवर्स। तो उन्होंने ख़ुद मुझे दिया था, एक दोस्त के वो रिश्तेदार थे। मेरा तो वो 20 सफ़े पढ़ना भी मुश्किल हो गया। तो मैं एक कारी की हैसियत से बात कर रहा हूँ, वैसे तो वो बुकर प्राइज़ के लिए भी नॉमिनेट हुआ था। तो बहरहाल ये उसमें तो लैंग्वेज जो है वो बड़ी, उसके अंदर एक नेचुरलनेस और फ़्लो इस तरह का नज़र आता है कि उसमें कहीं महसूस नहीं होता कि बड़ी कोई शऊरी कोशिश की गई है इम्प्रेस करने की कि अच्छा जी ये देखें ये मेरे पास ज़ुबान का हुनर है। और ख़ास तौर पे ज़ाहिर है कि जब आपकी मदर टंग ना हो, एज ए सेकंड लैंग्वेज आप लिख रहे हो उसको। दूसरा ये टॉपिक पे मेरी नज़र से नहीं कोई नावल गुज़रा जो पाकिस्तान में इस सेटिंग के अंदर, ये जेंडर की बात तो खैर बहुत ज़्यादा इसके अंदर आ गई, लेकिन सोशलिस्ट मूवमेंट, कम्युनिस्ट मूवमेंट जो यहाँ पे रही है और प्रोग्रेसिव जो एक स्ट्रगल पाकिस्तान के अंदर रही है, कि इसके ऊपर इतना ज़्यादा मटीरियल, ऐसे ऐसे लोग मौजूद हैं, कुछ तो ज़ाहिर बेचारे गुज़र गए हैं और जिन्होंने अपनी ज़िंदगियाँ इस सारी मूवमेंट के अंदर نکالی ہیں, ابھی کچھ زندہ بھی ہیں, کہ اگر آپ لکھنا شروع کریں تو بہت سارا ایک آپ کے پاس مٹیریل موجود ہے. اس میں بڑے بڑے مطلب لوگ موجود ہیں, دلچسپ بھی ہیں, اور اس کے اندر بہت ساری ایک ٹریجک سٹوریز بھی ہیں جنہیں آپ گوسٹ آف کمیونسٹ موومنٹ, سوشلسٹ موومنٹ کہہ سکتے ہیں, کہ کس طرح سے ان کے ایڈیولوگ نے ان کو بٹرے کیا, یا مطلب ہے کہ ان کی زندگیوں میں ایک بے معنویت جو بھر دی, ایک خواب دکھا کے کہ جی سوشلسٹ ریولوشن جو وہ آ رہا ہے. تیسری بات تو اس پہ مطلب لکھنے کی ضرورت ہے. کچھ انڈیا کا تو مجھے اندازہ ہے کہ وہاں فلمیں پلیز وغیرہ ہوئے ہیں اس ساری سوشلسٹ کمیونسٹ موومنٹ کے کانٹیکس میں, یہاں میری نظر سے نہیں گزرا. تیسرا یہ کہ جو ناول انگریزی میں لکھنے کا جو ایک چلن ہے یہاں پہ, یا جو بھی پاکستان سے باہر امریکہ یورپ میں رہ رہے ہیں انڈین پاکستانی, تو یہ بڑا ایک ٹرینڈ سا چلا ہوا ہے کہ وہ لکھ رہے ہیں ناول, اور بڑے کامیاب ناول لکھے ہیں. اس میں بڑا ایک پیٹرن جو مجھے نظر آتا ہے کہ وہ لگا بندہ سا ہے کہ بھئی ایک پروٹیگنسٹ ہے جو امریکہ میں یا یورپ میں, وہ وہاں چلا گیا, پھر وہ آئیڈینٹی پرابلم کا شکار ہو گیا, پھر وہ نوسٹیلجک ہے. اس طرح کی ایک ہمیں نظر آتی ہے فریم ورک ساخ جس میں موسٹلی ناول لکھے گئے ہیں اپنا. اس میں بھی وہ ہے, لیکن یہ ذرا ان سے ذرا فرق ہے, وہ اتنا انٹینس نہیں ہے جیسے وہ لکھتے ہیں کہ جو ہر وقت جو ہے اپنا اس میں گرفتار رہتا اپنی آئیڈینٹی. یہ کافی ایک قدرتی اور نیچرل سا نظر آتا ہے اس کے اندر. اس کے اندر ذرا تھوڑا ایک میڈ اپ کا ایلیمنٹ بھی مجھے محسوس ہوتا ہے, میں بحیثیت کاری بات کر رہا ہوں. تو یہ کچھ تاثرات تھے میرے کہ, اور میں مطلب مبارکباد پیش کرتا ہوں ڈاکٹر صاحب کو کہ بڑا اچھا انہوں نے.
میں صرف کہنا چاہتا ہوں یہ سمپلسٹی آف لینگویج ہے نا, اینڈ دین بیکاز ہی ہیز سو مینی سبسٹینشیل تھنگس ٹو سے that he doesn't have to cover the mediocrity with the language. تو یہ دو میں صرف sentences پڑھنا چاہتا ہوں. These are very simple sentences, but they are no less beautiful and they convey something very beautiful. And you also, even if you have a taste for the language, you actually savor it. So یہ ہے کہ اب یہ وہ character ہے داؤد. He is sleeping like a man, protecting himself from the world around him. Like a man afraid of waking up unless he is assured that he would not be harmed again. So, you know, it's a very simple sentence. It tells you about the posture that somebody is sleeping. آپ نے بہت سی چیزیں دیکھی ہوں گی. They reflect کہ the way you sleep and how it is, how it reflects your mental state. تو یہاں پہ ایک sentence ہے. It tells you a lot about it, but in a very simple manner. اور پھر ایک داؤد کا جو وہ ہے کے بارے میں کہ he lived like a murmur and vanished in silence. You see, it's beautiful. So یہ poetic ہے.
جی جی, تو اس میں بھی پوئٹری ہے بیچ میں. اوکے,
اس میں سارا کی بات تو ہو رہی ہے ساتھ ساتھ داؤد کی بھی, لیکن وہ پڑھتے ہوئے مجھے سب سے زیادہ جس نے اٹریکٹ کیا وہ داؤد کا کیریکٹر تھا, جس میں بڑا ایک انگما ہے, ایک کمپلیکسٹی ہے. اور ڈیورنگ دا ریڈنگ میرا یہ ہوتا تھا کہ کب داؤد کا اس میں جو ہے وہ آئے گا کوئی آگے ذکر جو ہے اس ناول کے اندر. تو وہ میرے خیال, اور ایک پوائنٹ جو ان کا پہلا ناول بھی میں نے پڑھا ہوا ہے گمان, اور یہ بھی میں نے پڑھا ہے, تو گمان میں بہت زیادہ ایک داخلیت ہے, اگر کسی نے یہاں پڑھ رکھا جو میں نے محسوس کیا اس وقت. اس میں کافی ایک بیلنس ہے داخلیت اور واقعیت کے اندر, بڑا ایک فائن بیلنس رکھا گیا. لیکن اس کے کردار میں جو داؤد ہے یہ بہت زیادہ مجھے پسند آیا ہے, جس نے بہت زیادہ اٹریکٹ کیا ڈیورنگ دا ریڈنگ مجھے.
جی تھینک یو.
جی عرفان احمد عرفی میرا نام ہے. مجھے ارشد وحید صاحب سے سوال یہ کرنا ہے کہ انہوں نے بتایا کہ جب اس کو یہ پروسیس میں جب یہ اس کو پڑھتے تھے ایز اے ریڈر تو پھر یہ بڑے ڈپریس بھی ہوتے رہے. تو میرا ایک پرسیپشن ہے کہ جیسے اس میں ایک میننگ لیسنس آف ایگزسٹنس کو بھی کا اشارہ کیا, اور اس میں ایک بڑی بے وقت سی موت بھی ہے جو کہانی کے آخر میں وہ ہوتی ہے, اور بڑی ایک میننگ لیس سی. تو اب میرا ان سے سوال ہے کہ اب جب یہ سنتے ہیں کہ یہ بڑے سکسیزفل ہوئے یہ ناول لکھ کے اور ان کو مبارک ملتی ہے، تو کیا اب یہ ان کو کوئی میننگ فل نظر آتا ہے وہ سارا پروسیس اور وہ پورا جو پین ہے؟ تو کیا اب آپ کو لگتا ہے کہ ایگزسٹنس جو ہے وہ ورتھ لیونگ ہو گیا ہے؟
وہ آپ کریکٹر کی بات کر رہے ہیں نہیں، میرا تو یہ تھا کہ ختم ہو گیا تو بس ٹھیک ہے، مطلب آئی ایم آؤٹ آف اٹ، تو بس اٹس ریڈرس پرابلم. ہاں سو دیٹس، اور وہ اس موت کو بے وقت دکھانا بڑا ضروری تھا. اس میں بہت لوگ کہتے ہیں کہ وہ اننیسیسری تھا، اس کو نہیں ہونا چاہیے تھا، اور لیکن میرے خیال میں اس کے بغیر اس کا کوئی اینڈ تھا بھی نہیں. It had to be like this.
اس میں ایک بات میں کہنا چاہوں گا کہ میننگ لیسنس کے ساتھ ہم ریلیٹ چونکہ کرتے ہیں تو وہی اس کا میننگ ہے، بیکاز ہمارے جو ایکسپیرینسز ہیں ان کے ساتھ ہم ان کو ریلیٹ کر رہے ہوتے ہیں اس میننگ لیسنس.
وہی صاحب یہ جو ٹائٹل ہے اس کی تھوڑا سا بیک گراؤنڈ اگر بتائیں، اور اس کے اگینسٹ جو پاسبل ٹائٹل اور تھے جو کہ آپ کے مائنڈ میں تھے لیکن وہ نہیں آئے اور یہ آیا.
اس کے شروع میں بہت سارے ٹائٹلز آتے رہے اور چینج ہوتے رہے، تو مجھے کسی کے ساتھ جو ہے نا وہ کچھ لگ نہیں رہا تھا یہ صحیح ہے. تو اس کی کوئی لمبی چوڑی کہانی نہیں ہے، اٹ جسٹ اسٹرک ان مائی مائنڈ. تو مجھے لگا کہ بس یہ ہونا چاہیے. اس نے یہ خود بھی تھوڑا سا ویگ بھی ہے، تو اس کے بہت سارے جواب دے دیے جاتے ہیں. تو وہ کہ جی اسٹوری کو ایگزیکٹلی اس کا ٹائٹل پورٹرے کرے، اس سے بھی کچھ آزاد ہے. تو اٹ واز کنوینئنس، نتھنگ مور دین دیٹ.
Sir, my question is to Waqas Masood Saab, because he has lived in England. He has got a lot of experience of observing the society of England, also the people of Pakistan, India and other countries living there. Do you think that this split personality problem, or the problem that has been discussed in this novel through that story, کہ جو سارا ہے اس کی بیٹی جو ہے وہ اس سے ریئیکٹ کرتی ہے، شی وانٹس ٹو ایفیلیٹ ہر سیلف ود دی کلچر آف ہر اون کنٹری، کیا یہ پاکستانیوں کے ساتھ وہاں پر زیادہ انٹینس ہے یہ پرابلم، یا دوسرے کلچرل کے جو لوگ ہیں ان کے ساتھ بھی یہ پرابلم ایکولی ایسا ہی ہے جس طرح کہ پاکستانیز کے ساتھ ہے؟ آپ کا کیا خیال ہے؟
دیکھیے جو گیٹو کمیونٹیز ہیں وہ وہاں پہ جو میں نے دیکھیں وہ ہمارے انڈینس، سکھس اور جو پاکستانیز ہیں. تو اف یو گو ٹو ساؤتھ ہال، وہاں پہ آپ دیکھیں گے دیر آر انڈین سنیماز، اینڈ دین دیر آر ویمن ہو نیور اسٹیپڈ آؤٹ آف ساؤتھ ہال اینڈ دے جسٹ ڈونٹ نو ویئر از لیورپول، یا دیر از اے سینٹرل لائن وچ گوز فرام دا ہارٹ آف دا سینٹرل لنڈن، دے ہیو نیور ہرڈ اباؤٹ سینٹرل لنڈن. تو وہ ابھی بھی وہی دے آر ہیونگ دا سیم کائنڈ آف میل دیٹ دے ہیڈ وین دے ور لیونگ ان انڈیا اور ان پاکستان. سو آئی واز امیزڈ دیٹ دیر ور پیپل، آئی مین دیر ور ویمن married to quite smart people, but they were oblivious of many things that were happening in that. London is a very hot and happening place, but they didn't know what is theatre, Madame Tussauds, and then all the different aspects of life which are there. It's a very vibrant society and a very vibrant city. So they had absolutely no inkling. Ab agar aap, either you can lament or you can feel flabbergasted, oh my good Lord, we had to give so many exams to, come to this country to study something, and, but then there are people who were fortunate to have been here for long, and they didn't have to, they got married to somebody and they came to that part of the world, but they didn't make any conscious effort to learn something new, because this is the whole. Life has no meaning, you have to create some. And one wonderful way is to learn something new every day, so that, you keep that meaning alive. I am alive, I am learning something new, I am still viable, I am still useful. Because otherwise, you become fossilized. If I don't read, if I don't learn anything new, I have nothing to talk about. So,
ایک کویسچن میرے پاس آن لائن ہے یہاں پہ، میں وہ پڑھ دیتا ہوں. ریحان خان ریمارکس، پیپل گیو دیئر پیک ٹائم، یہ کوٹ ہے اس میں سے، پیپل گیو دیئر پیک ٹائم موسٹ ریپروڈکٹیو ٹائم ٹو دا ویسٹ and then they come back to their roots to get buried in their soil. مرنے کے لیے یہاں آ جاتے ہیں. He asks, اور آگے یہ کوٹیشن ہے, may God keep her on the right path, جو آپ نے بھی پڑھا زلیخا کے الفاظ ہیں. What is the right path? The path once Sara opted for herself is not at all right for her daughter. One thing which is right for ourselves is not correct for our children. What do we call it? Maturity or lessons learned over the period of time.
Hypocrisy, I would say. اور اس کے لیے تو میں تو پھر وہی بات ہے کہ اردو کا غالب کا شعر ہے, تیشے بغیر مر نہ سکا کوہکن اسد, سرگشتہ خمار رسوم و قیود تھا. تو بات یہ ہے کہ یہ جو ہے نا وہ ہمارے سے وہی بات ہے, ٹو ان لرن the things that we have learned, اور یہ روم دینا اور یہ اکنالج کرنا کہ جس سوسائٹی میں آپ گئے ہیں اس سوسائٹی میں صرف آپ کوئی تعلیم حاصل کرنے یا فارچون کے لیے نہیں گئے ہیں, وہاں پہ آپ کو یہ بھی لرن کرنا ہے. دیکھیں, نو بڈی وانٹس ٹو لیو دیئر ہوم لینڈ, دے آر ویری کمفرٹیبل. تو وین یو گو آؤٹ آف یور کمفرٹ زون, سو گیو یور سیلف دا چانس ٹو لرن اینڈ آلسو ٹو اپریشیٹ what they have done that you had to leave your homeland to get something. Isn't it a big thing? I think it's a huge thing that you invest so much of your time, energy, money to go there. Itne youngsters hame milte hain har roz, students who want to go abroad, get the international exposure. بات تو یہ ہے کہ آخر ان معاشروں میں ایسی کیا بات ہے کہ ہم اپنی زندگیاں, آدھی زندگیاں گزار دیتے ہیں کہ ہم کسی طریقے سے وہ ایکسپوجر حاصل کر لیں. لیکن کئی بار ہم وہاں جاتے ہیں, واپس آتے ہیں, تو کئی لوگ ہم ہنس کے کہتے ہیں some people have been to Cambridge, some people have been to Oxford, but they have hardly changed. The naivety that they talk is appalling. It is as if they have not lived for a single moment over there. تو یہ میں کہتا ہوں کہ یہ چیز جو ہے نا کہ آپ کا جو ایک شعوری سفر ہے وہ کئی بار ٹیکنیکل گراؤنڈ پہ آپ نے کوئی 4 لفظ سیکھ لیے, وہ ٹیکسٹ بک سیکھ لی, کوئی اس کے ریلیٹڈ کوئی بات سیکھ لی, لیکن اس معاشرے سے آپ نے کچھ نہیں سیکھا, بیکاز پرابلی یو ور سو انٹرینچڈ ان یور ویوز دیٹ آئی ڈونٹ نیڈ ٹو لرن اینی تھنگ سوشل کلچرل فرام دیم.
ایک چھوٹی سی بات اس میں مزید کہ اس ناول میں ایسا کوئی میسج نہیں ہے کہ آپ کو کچھ ضرور لرن کرنا ہے, بلکہ یہ تو کہتا ہے کہ لائف سے کچھ ضروری نہیں کہ آپ کچھ ہر وقت ہر بندے کو کچھ سمجھائے بھی. اٹس بیسکلی ہیومن کنڈیشن, اور سارا اپنی زندگی میں خود بھی ٹرانسفارم ہو سکتی ہے. دس از آل پروبیبلٹی. تو مطلب جو کہانی ہے ممکنات کی بات ہے, یہ کسی ایبسولیوٹ ریئلٹی کی بات نہیں ہے. کسی ایبسولیوٹ ریئلٹی کو ہم نہیں جانتے. تو بس یہ
جی اس میں بات کو بڑھانا چاہوں گا کہ سمی ڈز چینج ایکچولی. وہ اسلامزم والی جو اس کی ہے تو وہ لائف میں وہ یہ فلیٹ کیریکٹرز نہیں ہیں, دے لرن فرام دس سچویشن اینڈ
فلیٹ کیریکٹرز, بٹ شی از انادر ہیومن بینگ, شی از ناٹ سارا. تو وہ اپنے حساب سے سیکھ رہی ہیں نا, اور شی آلسو ٹرانسفارمز ایٹ دی اینڈ میں.
ایک چھوٹی سی بات یہ کہ یہاں پہ جو کویشچن ہے نا اس میں ایسے ہے کہ جو نیکسٹ جنریشن ہے اس کو کوئی اور, لیکن سارا جو ہے وہ سمی کو قطعاً کوئی ریگریسو ہیومن بینگ نہیں بنانا چاہتی. وہ تو بلکہ اس بات پہ خوش نہیں ہے کہ وہ دا وے ہر پرسنالٹی از ڈیولپنگ. اب اس میں جو آپ نے جس طرح سے اس ناول میں بتایا کہ وہ اس کی وجہ ایک طرف دیکھیں نا, میری تعمیر میں مضمر ایک صورت خرابی کی, ایک طرف شی نیڈیڈ ہیلپ فرام زلیخا, but because Sami ended up spending so much time with Zulaikha that she developed all those antediluvial notions that she never wanted her kid to nurture. So there are certain things that are beyond your control. So اسی لیے میں کہہ رہا ہوں میری تعمیر میں مضمر ایک صورت خراب.
جی شازیہ, آپ اس کو میرا خیال ہے کنکلوڈ کر دیں تو بہتر ہے.
Yeah, of course. I just want to conclude it with the remark that it is a beautiful novel, as we have seen in these 1 hour and 30 minutes. And why it is a beautiful novel? Because we cannot stop ourselves with this predictions of what Sara is and what Sara is not, what Daud is and what Daud is not, and the author is again intervening and saying no, that's not like there is no absolute, there is no the clear cut answer, there is no judgmental. So you have to live with this, Arshad Saab, because when you write something so powerful it has as many interpretations as many readers or viewers it could have. And you have got the flavor of that, that you can say so many things about the narrative of the novel, that you still feel like, okay, I just left with one more thing, you know. I just left with one more thing, and that's the beauty of the thing. That's why people go like to see Mona Lisa for years and years and years, and they even mock at that, like what could have the, you know, the unique interpretation of that single picture, but people do not stop going there, and people cannot help themselves. So you have to live with that. So there will be as many interpretations.
जी एक वन लाइनर में आप भी कंक्लूड कर दें.
लाइनर में मैं सिर्फ कहना चाह रहा था, देयर इज वन थिंग दैट आई टॉक्ड अबाउट, पेरेंट यू नो चिल्ड्रन रिलेशनशिप, तो उसमें एक बुनियादी ह्यूमन डिज़ायर भी है, और वो लोग कहते हैं कि वो तमाम जितने भी आप इमोशंस एक्सपीरियंस करते हैं उससे बड़ी डिज़ायर है, और वो है द डिज़ायर टू बी अंडरस्टूड. तो ये जो है ना, यहाँ पे जो प्रेडिकमेंट है जो बहुत ब्यूटीफुली एक्सप्रेस किया गया है. अब वो कहती है कि वो जाने वाली है कि बाहर, तो कहती है इट वाज अ लॉन्ग स्लीपलेस नाइट फॉर हर, शी मिस्ड हर पेरेंट्स. अब ये जो मिसिंग हर पेरेंट्स है, इसकी एक वजह है, इफ़ ओनली आई कुड टॉक टू देम, टू फील देम अराउंड मी एंड शेयर माई वोज, बट वुड दे लिसन टू मी? Not sure. It would make no difference. They wouldn't understand. They wouldn't even try to understand my situation. There is nowhere to turn to. So ये असल जो है ना, this is our primary desire to be understood. And when our own dear ones, the so-called dear ones, don't understand us, that is very, very hurtful, I would say. Thank you.
जी ऑडियंस से तो अगर एक एक लाइनर लेंगे तो बहुत टाइम लग जाएगा. वन लाइनर मेरी तरफ से, मैंने भी किसी दौर में एक शेर लिखा था, उस पर मेरा ख्याल है मैं इख्तिताम करता हूँ. दिल पसो पेश में रहा दायम, दिल पसो पेश में रहा दायम, एक लम्हा न वक्त पर आया. जी आप लोगों का बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने बहुत इंटेलिजेंट किस्म के क्वेश्चंस किए. थैंक यू.